I've heard glowing recommendations about all of her books, including this one. But one of the biggest caveats here that I'm nervous about is that it's set during war, specifically the Vietnam War, and I don't do war books usually. But as you can see, I bought a physical copy because within 20 pages I was hooked. I am on page 354, and I read that in I think a day. I've tabbed a bunch of the scenes. I've highlighted a bunch of stuff. I'm obsessed with this book. I swear I have more interesting places to record, but this is just the most convenient at the moment. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with a hyped book vlog. I phrased that really strange. So, this month, if you have seen my TBR, you'll know that one of the books that I'm planning on reading this month is The Women by Kristen Hanna. Now, this is very, very popular in the circles that I have seen, so I thought I would make a hyped book vlog about my experience reading it because I don't know what to expect. So, I haven't started yet, so I'm going to dive into it soon, but I wanted to come to you with thoughts before I started it. So I am incredibly nervous about this book. The reason I'm picking this book up is because I am part of a book club, and this is just the book that I picked for January. I've never read a Kristen Hanna book, so I'm nervous because of that fact. She's a very popular author. I've got a couple of books by her, but I haven't picked them up yet. Like, I've never read anything by her. So I'm very nervous about that. I've heard glowing recommendations about all of her books, including this one. But one of the biggest caveats here that I'm nervous about is that it's set during war, specifically the Vietnam War, and I don't do war books usually. I mean, there's some books that, like, there's a specific reason I picked it up, but most of the time I don't do books set during war because I just find them overdone or boring. Not gonna lie. Sorry about it. But also, I've heard that the person in this book is a nurse during the war, because obviously we followed the women during the war, so what else are they going to be? They're going to be nurses and doctors and things like that. Actually, maybe not doctors. Either way, I've heard that. So I'm very nervous about that fact, because I don't do well medically. So depending on how descriptive things are, this could get interesting. So I am going in with an open mind. I would love to love this book, but I'm nervous for a few different reasons. So you might have more check-ins from me throughout this. I don't know how it's gonna go. This may be a hodgepodge of a video, but either way, I'm here to tell you that I'm gonna start it in like a day, and we're gonna see what happens. This could be the best book I've ever read, or this could be the worst book I've ever read. And I'm very, very nervous about it because I'm pretty sure this is going to be the first book I finish in the month. I'm realizing I definitely wore this the last time I came to talk to you, which is just humorous. Okay, so I'm here to give you a little bit of an update. I just hit my camera. Sorry about that. It's not a big update because I'm not very far. I am 80-ish pages in the book, but as you can see, I bought a physical copy because within 20 pages I was hooked. Like, I don't know what she's done because I do not care about war usually, but I'm fascinated with this character. We follow our character Frankie, and so far there are multiple parts to this book. So I'm thinking, I think I looked, and the first part is like 20 to 30 chapters. There's like 35 or 40 chapters in this book. Either way, so I'm thinking the first part is going to be her at war, and then we'll continue when she gets home. Either way, this book I was hooked. I'm not even kidding you, within the first like chapter. And I cannot explain why, because there are so many things about this book that are against it when it comes to things that I enjoy. But for some reason, I'm all in. So I think I forgot to say this at the beginning of the video, but usually what happens during these hyped book vlogs is they're spoilery. So I'm going to try not to spoil like huge things, but I think there's going to be spoils because I'm thinking about something that I'm going to want to talk about. So spoiler warning here. Where we're at so far. Frankie has a brother who went away to war, and she lives in California on this island that's a very like heavily, I think it's Navy, it's a very heavy Navy presence, but it's a very heavy presence. And so her dad has this wall that has like family members and like the good things that they have done, and all the guys that are up there are put up there because of the war, and the women are put up there because they get married. And she's like, I want to do something. And one of her friends or someone she knows is like, well, you could do something else besides getting married. So her brother ends up going off to war, and she's like, we've never been apart. I think they're twins, maybe not, I don't think so. I think they're just very, very close in age and very, very close in general. And so he goes off to war, and everyone is so excited about that. Her parents are beyond thrilled that he has done this. Her dad is ecstatic, all that kind of stuff. She goes, I want to do that too. So she goes and signs up to be a nurse. So the day that she signs up, she kind of jumps around to try to find someone, and no one will take her because she needs a couple of years of experience. She's gone to college, she's gone to nursing school, and she started actually working in a hospital, but she doesn't feel like it's enough. So she eventually signs up for the Army Nurse Corps because they don't require the 2 years of experience that everyone else did. And so the day she tells her parents this, they find out that her brother died, and that they don't have any remains or anything like that. Like, they don't have anything to bury him. And so like her mother is distraught and really upset, and her father is really upset that she even signed up for this, because they're like, why would you do that? And she's like, because I wanted to do something good. Why are you reacting differently to me than you did to my brother? And so she ends up signing up for her brother, and then she can't obviously get out of it. And so where I'm at is she's been there for, I think, a few months at this point, which, as you can see, like, I'm not very far into it. So the fact that she's been there for a few months, this is going to be probably span quite a long period of time. But she goes there, and of course, what they are told when they're signing up and in like the boot camp and all that kind of stuff is never what actually happens, because she has been told like to keep her outfits big and spam, to salute to all these different people, and like is given this brochure on what to expect. And like within the first flight, people start shooting at them, and they have to circle and then come back down, and the guy next to her is coming back to the Vietnam, and he's just like, this is very normal. And she is like, what is happening? I was told that I was not going to be on the front lines. And at this point, she's already had like a grenade kind of being thrown in near them. She's been like around fire, like open fire. Like, it is ridiculous the amount of stuff that she was not prepared for, which I think is the point. So obviously there's going to be huge trigger warnings for anything medically, anything like there's going to be PTSD, I'm sure, in this book. Like, we haven't reached it where I'm at, but I'm sure it's going to come into play here. And speaking of medically things, obviously she's a nurse, and she does work. Her first day ends up working in like the OR, which is not what she signed up for. And so, because they're all hands on deck, and so she ends up just being like the hand holder for people who are coming in, especially the ones who like they can't do anything for, so they're gonna pass anyway. And so she's just there with them as they're passing, which, first off, what a awful first day. But that's just an awful day, period. But like specifically her first day, like that's what she has to do, and that just sucks a lot. So like she's going to be going through some stuff, I know, but she's explaining like what these people are coming in with. Like, at one point, she's literally given someone's leg, which is no longer attached, and she's like, I don't know what to do with this. So the way things are described is not too descriptive, which I liked, because I was like very, very nervous about the medical stuff going into this book, and it ended up being okay so far. So I picked it up because I have a feeling I'm gonna love it, and I've already like tabbed things, and like I've gotten my highlighters out, and I've started highlighting moments. Like, This book is now, like, I have officially dedicated myself to this book. This book is now mine. So I just am very excited about it. So there's a lot of this book to go. But the fact that I was so obsessed with it, and I even had the ebook, and I was like, must get physical. I'm very excited about this. So I'll come back to you. This is a very good start. We'll see where it continues. I'm sure this is going to be a really tough book to get through. I'm sure I'm going to cry at some point during this book, but so far, I get it. I don't know why it works for me, but it's working for me. So I have an update with the woman. As you can see, I've taken the jacket off. I am on page 354, and I read that in, I think, a day. I've tabbed a bunch of the scenes. I've highlighted a bunch of stuff. I'm obsessed with this book. That is the moral of this story. It is turning out to be very, very good. So I'm well in part 2. For some reason I thought there were 5 parts. I don't know where I got that from, but I had it in my head that there were 5 parts when there's actually only 2. I thought it was going to be like a before and after the war, but it's actually before and after, like, this event is the best way I can describe it. So I don't remember where I was when I talked to you last, but basically she was in the war. She was a nurse, and this guy that she kind of liked but was married convinced her to move from, she was in, I can't remember what the ward was called, but it's basically the ward where people who go who are, for lack of a better word, brain dead. And she's like in charge of kind of like just tracking their progress, if they're going to get better. Some of them do get better, but not always. And so then this guy that she really likes, named Jamie, basically convinces her to become an ER nurse. So she changes, or puts in a transfer and becomes an ER nurse, which is what her other friends that she has made, the 2 women who were roommates with her, are also these nurses. And so she becomes really, like, vital there, and as she's working, she sees, like, one of her friends. So she's got 2 friends. One of them is Ethel and one of them is Barb. Hold on. Yeah, so you've got Ethel and Barb, and they both are roommates with her. Ethel is from, like, this small little town. Her dad's a veterinarian. She wants to be a veterinarian. She's from a farm and she wants to be a veterinarian. And so she has, like, some experience because of that. So she has her experience. Barb is a Black woman, and so, like, that's, like, her first real experience with someone who is a little bit different than her. And so Barb basically becomes her best friend. But Ethel ends up going home first. They get this little, like, letter in the mail. Basically says, like, your service is up. You can re-up if you want, but, like, your service is done. And so your tour, I guess, is done. And so this Ethel goes home first, and then Barb goes, and then a lot of stuff happens. Like, the guy that she likes ends up, like, dying, and then she becomes really close with this guy that she knew from back home. He was actually really close with her brother, and they, like, kind of had a friendship of sorts, and that, like, stems into a relationship. And then she ends up she re-ups because she looks at all the nurses that are around her and she goes, I am the most experienced, and if I leave, there are all these newbies who have no idea what they're doing. And even though it's, like, crazy and I should be able to go home and want to go home, I look around and I feel like this is what I need to do. So she re-ups and stays again for another year. And so he re-ups as well. And so he's a helicopter pilot. He's part of this small group. They're called the Seahawks, and they're basically, like, they didn't have to go through, I mean, they had to go through training, but, like, it was the Army's way of saying, like, we need a bunch of helicopter pilots who can just, like, drop everything and just fly all over the place, but aren't part of, like, a specific branch of the Army or Navy or military or whatever. And so he's one of those. He re-ups too. She ends up going home first. She ends up going home, like, 2 weeks before him, and she doesn't tell her parents. She wants to surprise them. And so she gets home, and nothing's quite right, and, like, her mom doesn't really want to know about the war. No one really cares about everything. And then she finds out that her dad has been lying to people and said that she was away in Florence, I think, or Venice, for the last, like, few years. And everyone thinks she's just been, like, studying abroad. And she's like, no, I was literally at the front line. Oh, and, like, right before she leaves, before Barb leaves, she gets moved to like even closer and more violent place. Like it's the place that like when you get moved to, you go, you don't want to go there. Like anyone who gets moved there, they're like, oh God. And so she gets moved there, and Barb goes, I'm not letting you do that alone, even if I'm only going to be here for a couple more months. So she goes with her. And so like the last thing and the last placement that she has is like very, very, very brutal and rough. And so when she comes home, she's got a lot of PTSD because of that. She can't sleep through the night. She has terrible nightmares. She'll wake up on the floor. She'll wake up screaming. She'll hear, I don't know, someone snapping or something that'll set her off, and she'll think it's like a bomb coming to get her. Like at one point, there is a moment a little bit later when she's at a 4th of July party and she hears a firework go off, and she like ducks under the table because of it. So she's dealing with a lot of that. And then she finds out the guy that she was like, she's been waiting. She got home a couple of weeks before him. They were gonna like start their lives together. Finds out that he has died, or he's MIA. Same thing kind of like with her brother, where he's died and there's no remains. And so she's dealing with that, and she kind of like sinks into this hole of despair. And she ends up going to a VA hospital to be like, hey, I was a vet, I need to talk to a doctor. And the doctor's like, but you didn't see combat. And she goes, yes, but I was there. And he goes, that's not the same thing. You're probably on your period. Just don't think about Vietnam. And she's like, how could I not think about it? And so you see her trying to deal with that. And then like she and Barb, I'm jumping ahead, but like she and Barb end up going to a march where like they're protesting this war, because even though now everyone knows that the US is losing, and like Nixon, I think, is the one who's president, is still sending people over, and he's just like pretending like they're still doing fine, and everyone knows that they're not. So everyone's trying to protest, and like they join a march for veterans, and they are the only women there. And everyone's like, what are you doing? And she like runs into this guy, and this guy's like, yeah, you didn't see combat. There were no women in Vietnam. She goes, no, but there were nurses. And he goes like, doesn't matter. That's not the same thing. And so they're dealing with it. Anyway, so she hits a really low point, and then she ends up like having a screaming after the parents and getting kicked out. And that night she accidentally crashes her car, and she's like freaking out and is like staying in a hotel. And so her friends Barb and Ethel come to get her, and Ethel says like, you and Barb are moving into the barn that I have. We're gonna make it livable for the two of you. Like, you're not living on your own anymore. And so then they spend the next couple of like, and that's where part 1 ends. And part 2 begins like, I want to say like a year or so afterwards, and she's working as an ER nurse, and has worked her way up to actually being in the ER. And she goes to some of these, she gets convinced by Barbara to go to some of these rallies and all this kind of stuff. And then she's just trying to like forget about Vietnam. She's trying to do exactly what she's been told, like just stuff it all down, all these thoughts, all the like memories of stuff. No one wants to hear it, not even the people who were there with you. And then her mom has a stroke. And so she ends up going back and kind of reconnecting with her dad a little bit. Still not great, but like it's better than it was. And so she stays around and becomes a nurse for her mom, and meets a guy and all that kind of stuff. So I am at the beginning of chapter 28, and I can't tell you why, but like literally wherever I was last, I can't remember what it was, chapter 9, I think, I read like 200 pages in a day. Granted, I had an audiobook and it was on 1.5 speed, but still, I am obsessed with this story. I think Frankie is a fascinating character because she grew up in a life of privilege, and she joined the army because she thought that it was what, like, she basically had been told by the guy that she ended up like falling in love with overseas, that was her brother's friend, like, women can be part of this too. And that's why she joins with some of the Navy or the Army Nurse Corps, because she's like, oh, you're right, I can be part of this. Let me do something about that. And so she's like, I can be part of something, but also to like hopefully make her parents proud. And she was very excited when she came home. She thought like her parents would be so excited and very, very proud of her, and they don't want her to mention it at all. And so she's feeling very upset by that. So like she went to war as this like privileged, perfect party girl's not the right word because she really wasn't, but like your perfect debutante, and very quickly came into her own. And there's some like really good lines in here that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find as I'm talking, but like there's some good lines where she talks about like, I am really happy with who I am. Like, even though this war has changed me, I'm proud of who I've become, and I'm proud of like the ability to stand up and like this is who I'm meant to be. And I just really liked that, the way that like she came into her own, and then she's got these two really good friends who like she would have not become friends with in any other instance, but like this very traumatic experience bonded them. But also like they come from such different backgrounds, and the fact that they can still be really good friends and still like, even though like they've gone different ways, like at this point Ethel has gotten married and has a kid, Barb is like all into the protesting and the stopping of the war and trying to do everything that she can to stop it. And Frankie is just trying to like keep her mom alive and, you know, on the right path. And she's doing that. And then she does meet a new guy and trying to like figure out how to help stop the war in a way that is actually doing something, but also isn't going to like endanger her life. Like when she went to some of these protests, and like she still does some of the protests, but it's not as I would say aggressive as Barb is. Like they each have taken their own path, and yet they still are communicating. They're still really good friends. They still send letters to each other all the time about all their like lives and stuff. And I just really liked seeing that friendship. So I'm interested to see where we're going to go, because where I'm at right now, Frankie just found out that she was pregnant. And so she's going to marry this guy who she's like, I don't feel the same way as I did about this guy that I knew in the war. And like, he was my one true love. And like, I don't know how to show love to this one. And he's like, I love you. And like, this is, how did he phrase it? I can't explain it. Like, it's just one of those things where like, this baby is a miracle. Love in the screwed up world is always worth celebrating. And so it's this like moment of, even though I may not have the same love feelings towards this guy as I did like this very passionate love for this other guy, I can still be appreciated, and like this can still be a good life. So I'm interested to see where we're gonna go, because we still have like 100 pages or so left, a little bit over 100 pages, and I like, what's the big twist? Like, is there gonna be a big twist at the end? Like, what's happening here? I'm just very curious. And this guy is very, very supportive. Like, he didn't fight himself, but like he is vastly against the war. And he noticed, because they met at one of these protests, and he noticed that she was wearing a pin that stated that she was in the army, like the Army Nurse Corps. And so like she mentions this to him, and he's like, he like agrees with her that counts. Like you were definitely a vet. And so like he's there for her, and he's incredibly supportive, and I just love him as a person, because like he came out of nowhere. He didn't push his agenda, because they met a couple of times before they actually started becoming a thing. And the first time they met, as he was leaving, he was like, how do I find you? And she goes, I'm not sure I'm ready to be found yet. And he goes, fair. And then they run into each other again, and like he again is very interested in her, and like it's very clear that he's interested in her, but he doesn't push it, because he can tell like she's just not ready and not there yet, and maybe they'll meet again. And then they happen to meet again. And so like I just really appreciated him as a character, because while she's had these two other loves in her life, they both have ended very tragically, and they both were good and different. There was this one that was like really this person who like pushed her to be the best nurse she could be, and that really helped her come out of her comfort zone when she started out at the war. And they had this guy that was like the big like passion love of her life, and now she's got someone who is maybe the safer choice, but is also like the supportive choice. And like everything that she is going through, all of the PTSD that she is dealing with, he is there to support her, and he's not judging her. And it's very easy when it's set in the world like this. Like it starts in the mid to late 60s, and now we're in the early 70s. And at a time like this, it would be very easy to make a guy condescending and basically what the world is doing to her, which is like saying that she's not a vet. She like her experiences don't matter. They're not as important as the guy's experiences. And he's not like saying anything like that. He's like, your experiences are important and your experiences are your experiences, and I am here to support you. And I just really liked seeing that. So yeah, I'm interested to see where we go from here. I will come back to you when I finish this. Honestly, like, I paused reading this so I could come here and give you an update. Like, I didn't want to continue and get too close to the end without giving you an update, even though I'm well past halfway. So now I can go and finish this, hopefully in the next day or so. But I need to know what's next, you know, and I just am, I don't know, like, everything about this book, from the plot to the subject matter to the time period, like, everything about this book should not work for me, and everything about this book is working for me. And I just think that I just needed to read this. Like, this was just, I picked it at the right time. And I'm so happy. So I'll come back to you when I have final thoughts. But so far, this is probably going to be a 5-star. I would be surprised. Something very dramatic has to happen at the end for it to not be a 5-star. Anyway, I'm excited. Hello, I'm here because I have officially finished The Women by Kristen Hanna, and surprise shock to no one, I gave it 5 stars. Okay, maybe surprise shock to me at the beginning of this video when I was first starting it, but like, at this point, we all knew it was getting 5 stars. Yeah, I just have a lot of strong feelings. I feel like this was incredibly out of my comfort zone, and I liked that. I think it's good to read things out of your comfort zone every once in a while, and I feel like this is going to be the year. This is going to be the year that I let mood reading and different types of stories take over. And this was just a really good start. So, trigger warnings for this book. I'm going to forget some, I'm sure, but obviously things like PTSD, medical trauma, if you are someone who doesn't like blood and gore and things like that, I kind of like lump that in with medical trauma because I guess that happens. She's obviously explaining like what she's doing. Again, not super graphic in the sense of like I was okay, but it's definitely a part of the story. She explains kind of like what she's doing. And so you've got that, you've got mentions of suicide, talks of suicide, you've got miscarriage, you've got, I think that might be it at the moment that I can think of. There's probably a few more, but like those are very heavy topics. The last like hour of my audiobook, I want to say the last like 50 pages of this book, I swear I did nothing but cry the entire time. I was so emotionally invested in these characters, in the story, in where it was going, and Frankie as a person. Like, I feel like there was 2 options, okay, for her story, and I wasn't sure which one we were getting, and we got the one that I hoped for, but was that something was going to break, and even though she had been trying to get help this entire time, and everyone was saying like, no, women didn't serve in Vietnam, you can't get like help from the VA, and she's like, but we did, and the fact that you didn't see us is good because I mean you never went to a hospital and that you were super lucky. And they're like, yeah, but you're fine, it's not the same thing as combat, you'll get over it. And so she tried early on in the story right before the first part ended, and then she tried again I want to say maybe a couple of chapters after I came to you, I think, with my last update. Maybe more than that. She felt like she was really breaking, and they told her the exact same thing. And so she's had this drilled into her brain the whole time. So I thought we were either going to have basically a psychotic break, because obviously she was dealing with the PTSD. She just needed the right people to listen to her. And so she was either going to get that, or unfortunately she was just going to drown in her own emotions. And I was afraid that we could have also gone the more upsetting route, which would have ended in her death. And I wasn't sure which one we were getting, and both are very valid experiences to this time. Thankfully we got the one where she ends up getting help. Now she hits rock bottom and then some, and then she does finally get help from the right people. And there's a lot of like full circle moments at the end with the specifically I'm thinking about the men in her life. And there's some really good full circle moments with her parents. Like there's this moment at the end, like the book ends with the Vietnam War memorial being put up in DC, and she ends up going with obviously Ethel and Barb, and her parents say that they're not going to go because it's too emotional for them, and she goes, makes sense, and then they do end up showing up because they want to see their son's name, and her mom straight up says, I'm proud of you. And it was like all she wanted to hear this whole time. And so we had like a very full circle moment with her. We had a full circle moment with her dad, being like, you actually, like at one point, sorry, I'm backtracking a little bit. At one point, because she and Barb and Ethel go, and they all are in their combat gear, like combat boots, shirts, everything, you know, outfits, the pins that say that they were part of the Army Nurse Reserve, things like that. And of course, they marched with all the vets as they go into the memorial. The only women that they see, there might be other women there, but there's only women that they see. And so they're expecting to kind of still get that negative feedback from other people who served. And at one point, a man like bops her on the shoulder and sees her in her outfit, asks, obviously she served. And she goes, yes, I was a nurse. And he like thanks her for her service, basically, and like commemorates with her the fact that like they share this moment of like, we both experienced this, and her dad got to witness that. And because of that, her dad had this moment of like, oh crap, you went through some stuff. Like, I know you went through some stuff, but like you really went through some stuff. And so you have full circle moments with them. And then also in like a twist I did not expect, like there was a twist in this book with the character of Rye, I believe is his name, which is the second person that she fell for, the one kind of ruined her a little bit. He comes back a little bit. He actually didn't die. He was a POW, a prisoner of war. But surprise, he got married before he even went off to war. And so there was like a lot with her and him, and just some stuff happened there. And she has like a moment with him. And they kind of felt like a full circle moment where she finally gets over him. And then like the guy that she was going to marry, because I think the last time I came to you, she was pregnant, about to get married. She ended up having a miscarriage. And so she deals with a lot of stuff. And so it breaks down a lot of the relationships that she's had. But we have a full circle moment because the first person that she fell for, which was Jamie, I think I mentioned him very early on. He is married, so the two of them never do anything. He wants to do something. They clearly both love each other. They talk about it, but there's emotions there. But she never acts on it because she knows that he's married, and I think he has a kid at that point. And so like they purposefully like she won't let them do anything. And then she sees. I must have misinterpreted, but basically like he goes down in a helicopter crash and he comes into their ER and she thinks that like he's brain dead and basically like he's dead. But he comes back, and he comes back at the very, very end. And I just felt like that was such a beautiful full circle moment for her, because like she's gone through all of this ridiculous amount of healing, that she is content in who she is. And then, but she's also very broken. She's trying to help other women who are broken, and this man was a doctor, but he's very broken. Like he's limping, he's got like scars all over him, like he clearly went through some stuff. And they allude to a possible future with the two of them. They don't show it, but they allude to it. And I liked that because like they had both been through some stuff. He ended up getting divorced. He has 2 kids, but he ends up getting divorced because his ex-wife couldn't deal with like the hardships and stuff that he had to talk about when he came back. So there was a lot there, and everything about this, like maybe some of the ties, the ends, tied up a little too quickly, not quickly, but like a little too perfectly with a perfect little bow. But at the same time, I loved all the twists and turns. I loved her story. I loved seeing her. The start of the book, at the end of the book, are like vastly different people. I liked seeing her kind of like have her moments and like seeing how hard it was for her to go through this. There's also like an author's note and like an acknowledgement about the people that she talked to, and the people that like helped her write this story, and the amount of people who like actually lived through this experience, made it as historically accurate as she possibly could. So all of this is to say that there was a lot of things, a lot of boxes that should not have worked for me with this book. and it was amazing. I've tabbed the crap out of it. As you can see, I've highlighted the crap out of it. There's a lot of moments here that are very meaningful and impactful, and while this is not the happiest of stories, it's not a happy story, sometimes that needs to be told. So I'm happy to read this. I'm happy that, like, even though this is not a nonfiction story, it's as close to reality as you can get with it being fiction, and the realities of what was happening during the Vietnam War with women specifically is captured in these pages. Is it worth the hype? In my opinion, yes. And this is coming from someone who shouldn't have liked this book. So I don't really know how to end this. It was really great. It was not what I expected. And at the same time, it had elements and stuff that I did expect. So it's not like the things that happened were unexpected. It is unexpected how connected to the characters in the story I got. So yeah, I'm so glad I read this. I'm so glad I'm part of this book club that makes me read things like this that I would never pick up on my own. Because, like, again, nothing about this book's that interesting. I would not have picked this book up if I wasn't reading it for a specific reason. So yeah, and now I own it, and now it's pretty, and now I can recommend it to lots of people. So read things out of your comfort zone. That is the moral of this episode specifically. So that's my thoughts on the women. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. Let me know your thoughts if you've read this book, or if you've read another Kristen Hannah book. I own The Nightingale on Fourth Wind, I think is what it's called. So I think she's got an incredibly large backlog list of books. So if you are a Kristen Hannah fan, what is your favorite book? Let me know your thoughts, because I'm definitely now significantly more inclined to pick up other things by her now that I've read one, and what a great one to start with. So anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know all of your bookish thoughts down below. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you're part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so feel free to check all that out. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.